On the night of August 10, 1945, two American Army colonels were given a task. They were given a National Geographic map of Korea. They were given 30 minutes. Their task was to find a line on that map that would divide the Korean peninsula into two zones, one for the United States, one for the Soviet Union, for the purposes of accepting Japan's surrender. The two colonels were Dean Rusk, who would later become Secretary of State under Presidents Kennedy and Johnson, and Charles Bonesteel. Neither of them had been to Korea. Neither of them spoke Korean. Neither of them had been briefed on Korean geography, Korean demographics, or the specific human reality of the peninsula they were dividing. They chose the 38th parallel because it placed Seoul, Korea's capital, in the American zone, and because it appeared on the map as a clean horizontal line. They made their decision in 30 minutes. That line has divided the Korean people for 80 years. It has never been moved. The decision to divide Korea at the 38th parallel was made on August 10 and 11, 1945. Japan had indicated its willingness to surrender following the atomic bombing of Hiroshima on August 6 and Nagasaki on August 9. The Soviet Union, which had declared war on Japan on August 8 as agreed at the Yalta Conference, was advancing rapidly into Manchuria and toward the Korean peninsula. American planners, concerned that Soviet forces might occupy the entire peninsula before American forces could arrive, needed to propose a division line quickly. The State War Navy Coordinating Committee tasked two colonels with the problem at approximately midnight on August 10. Rusk and Bonesteel worked with what they had, a National Geographic map in 30 minutes. They chose the 38th parallel for practical reasons. It divided the peninsula roughly in half, it placed Korea's capital Seoul in the American zone, and it was a line the Soviets might plausibly accept given that it gave them the larger northern portion of the territory. The Soviets accepted it without negotiation. The speed of the Soviet acceptance surprised American planners. In retrospect, historians have noted that the 38th parallel gave the Soviet Union control of the industrial north of Korea, where Japanese colonial infrastructure had concentrated mining, manufacturing, and power generation, while the agricultural south went to the Americans. The Soviets had received the more economically valuable portion of the peninsula and had agreed immediately. The Korean people were not consulted. Korea had been promised independence following Japan's defeat, promised explicitly in the Cairo Declaration of 1943, which stated that Korea would become free and independent in due course. The phrase, "in due course," had been deliberately vague. What it produced, in practice, was a division imposed by two foreign powers on a country that had spent 35 years under the colonial rule of a third foreign power and that had expected, upon liberation, to govern itself. Instead it got two zones. The 38th parallel was not a natural boundary. It had no relationship to Korean geography, Korean demographics, Korean culture, or Korean history. It crossed rivers, cut through mountains, divided farming communities from the fields they worked, and separated families who had lived on the same land for generations without knowing that an imaginary line now ran between them. In the weeks following Japan's surrender, Koreans who had been living north of the line and working south of it, or living south and working north, found themselves subject to movement restrictions that had not existed the previous week. The division was being administered. It was hardening. Families separated by the line attempted to cross it in both directions. Some succeeded. As the weeks became months and the months became years, the crossing became increasingly difficult and eventually impossible. The temporary administrative division, which American planners had understood as temporary, was acquiring the permanence of geography. Neither the United States nor the Soviet Union took meaningful steps to reunify the peninsula in the years that followed. Both were building client states. The logic of the Cold War, which required each superpower to consolidate its sphere of influence, worked directly against the reunification that Koreans on both sides of the line were demanding. By 1948, two separate governments had been established, the Republic of Korea in the south, backed by the United States, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the north, backed by the Soviet Union. The temporary line had become a permanent border between two states. The Korean people had not voted for either of them. The division hardened into war. On June 25, 1950, North Korean forces crossed the 38th parallel and invaded the South. The Korean War, which Koreans call the June 25th War, or sometimes the Forgotten War, a name that reflects its place in international memory, lasted 3 years and 1 month. It ended not with a peace treaty but with an armistice, a ceasefire agreement signed on July 27, 1953, that suspended the fighting without formally ending the conflict. The Korean War has never officially ended. The armistice line, which corresponds roughly but not exactly to the 38th parallel, remains the border between North and South Korea today. The demilitarized zone, the buffer strip on either side of the armistice line, is one of the most heavily fortified borders in the world. The human cost of the war was staggering. Estimates of total Korean deaths, military and civilian, North and South, range from 3 million to 4 million people. The uncertainty reflects the difficulty of counting deaths in a conflict that involved mass civilian displacement, widespread famine, and disease caused by the war's destruction of agricultural and infrastructure systems, and the deliberate targeting of civilian populations by both sides of the conflict. American deaths, approximately 36,000. Chinese deaths, estimated 180,000 to 400,000. Korean deaths, between 3 and 4 million, out of a total Korean population of approximately 30 million at the time. 1 in 10 Koreans died. In addition to the dead, approximately 10 million Koreans, families separated by the division and then by the war, were cut off from each other permanently. They could not write letters. They could not make phone calls. They could not visit. The separation was total and indefinite. Many of them never saw each other again. The Korean War is called the Forgotten War in American popular memory, sandwiched between the celebrated victory of World War II and the culturally defining trauma of Vietnam. It occupies a strange middle space in American historical consciousness. It is not forgotten in Korea. In South Korea, the war and the division it produced are the defining facts of modern national life. The separation of families, the approximately 10 million people divided by the armistice line, has been a political and humanitarian issue that South Korean governments have navigated through every subsequent decade. Limited family reunion programs, negotiated with the North Korean government in periods of relative diplomatic engagement, have allowed some separated family members to meet, briefly, in controlled settings, for the first time in decades. The most recent large-scale family reunion program was held in 2018. Since then, North Korea has not agreed to further reunions. The separated families who are still alive are in their 80s and 90s. Time is running out. The Korean Peninsula remains divided in 2024. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea, is one of the most isolated states on Earth. Its population of approximately 26 million people lives under a system of totalitarian control that has been documented extensively by defectors, human rights organizations, and the United Nations Commission of Inquiry that produced a landmark report in 2014 describing systematic, widespread, and gross human rights violations. The report described a state in which political prison camps hold an estimated 80,000 to 120,000 people, in which public executions are used as instruments of social control, in which access to food, information, movement, and political expression are controlled by a state that prioritizes regime survival above all other considerations. The specific human cost of the division, for the 26 million people living in North Korea, is ongoing and documented and largely invisible to the international community that has grown accustomed to the Korean Peninsula's division as a permanent feature of the geopolitical landscape. South Korea, by contrast, has become one of the world's most successful economies and democracies. From the devastation of the Korean War, which left the country poorer than some African nations in 1953, South Korea built an industrial economy, democratized in the late 1980s, and developed into a global cultural and technological power whose influence, in film, music, technology, and food, is felt across the world. The two Koreas that exist today are the most extreme example in the modern world of what happens when a single people, with a shared language and culture and history, is divided by external powers and then kept apart by decades of political, military, and ideological conflict. They began as the same people. They have spent 80 years becoming different countries. An estimated 130,000 South Koreans who were separated from family members in the North during the Korean War are still alive. They are in their 80s and 90s. The South Korean government maintains a registry of separated families. The registry documents who was separated from whom, where they were last seen, and what is known about whether they survived. For the majority of registered separated families, the status of their northern relatives is unknown. They do not know if the people they were separated from are alive. They do not know if those people know that they are being looked for. The last family reunion program, 2018, allowed 89 families to meet for 3 days in a controlled setting at the Mount Kumgang Resort in North Korea. 89 families. Out of an estimated 130,000 separated individuals still alive in the South alone. The mathematics of that gap, 89 reunions against 130,000 waiting, is a measurement of what the division has cost in human terms that statistics cannot fully capture. Dean Rusk lived until 1994. In his memoirs, he wrote about the night of August 10, 1945, the 30 minutes, the National Geographic map, the 38th parallel. He acknowledged the speed of the decision and its consequences. He did not express regret in the terms that the consequences might seem to demand. He was a man who had made a decision in 30 minutes that he could not have fully understood at the time. Whether any additional time would have produced a better decision, whether there was, in the specific circumstances of August 1945, a version of this that did not result in 80 years of division, is a question that historians have debated without reaching a consensus. What is not debated is what the line produced. 3 to 4 million dead in the Korean War. 10 million families separated. 26 million people living under one of the most repressive systems on earth. 130,000 separated family members in the South, in their 80s and 90s, waiting for reunions that may never come. The line is still there. It was drawn in 30 minutes. It has divided the Korean people for 80 years. It has never been moved.